I recently watched The 13th Floor. So if you're into all things simulation theory, you're going to want to watch this video. Also, this contains spoilers, so if you're precious about films and, you're going to get your knickers in a twist because I've told you the plot, then fuck off and watch it first. Alright, let's proceed. In the year 2000, The 13th Floor was nominated for the Saturn Award for Best Science Fiction Film, but lost to The Matrix. Of course! Isn't it weird that, we hit the year 2000, we hit the second millennium, and we have two films about living in a simulation. Odd that. Odd. So I'm just going to summarise the plot for you and then going to tell you a bit more about why I think this film's important in regards to the simulation theory. The film is actually set in 1999 Los Angeles because that's when the film was made, and it starts with this old German geezer called Hannon Fuller, who owns a multi-million-dollar computer enterprise and is the inventor of a newly completed virtual reality simulation of 1937 Los Angeles, filled with simulated humans who are unaware that they are computer programs. Then this German geezer Fuller gets murdered just as he begins testing this VR system. So he's got a friend, or his protege, I suppose, called Douglas Hall, and the actor playing him was stiff as cardboard in this film. But this is not a film review, this is more about, the idea. Now, Douglas Hall is the heir to the company. Because of that, he becomes the primary suspect in murdering the old German geezer, and the evidence is so strong against him that Hall starts to think that he is actually responsible. So then he starts getting interrogated by an LAPD detective called, wait for it, Larry McBain, which is the most cop sounding name you could ever choose. Then Douglas Hall meets Jane Fuller, this pretty woman who says that she's the estranged daughter of the German geezer Hannon Fuller, and then she begins trying to take over the company and shut down this VR system. With the assistance of his associate Whitney, that's like his little computer geek helper, Hall attempts to find a message that Hannon Fuller left for him inside the 1937 LA simulation.
Engage timer. Preparing user for download into simulation. Program link ready for download.
Square 117 West Winston, Pasadena, Bridge.
Transference beginning. Download complete.
$0.05.
Excuse me?
You owe me $12.05.
Listen, young man.
I do not have all day.
Ferguson, anything wrong?
John.
Are you okay?
Terribly sorry, ma'am. Someone will be right with you.
So Douglas goes into this virtual reality of 1937 LA to find the Easter egg that Hannon Fuller left him. When he goes into this LA simulation, he becomes someone else who lives inside there, and he sort of takes over their consciousness, but strangely looks exactly the same, just sort of in 1937 clothes. Now, Fuller, the German geezer, left his secret message with a bartender at a hotel whose name is called Jerry Ashton, who is actually a carbon copy of Whitney, who's Douglas Hall's helper. So this Jerry Ashton geezer from 1937 reads the message, because he's a nosy little bastard. And it basically sends him over the flipping edge, because this note from the German geese was actually written for Douglas Hall, and it tells him that they are themselves in a simulation in 1999, and it tells him to go somewhere where he wouldn't expect to normally go and just keep driving. You'll know why in a minute. Then there's a bit of drama where Ashton tries to kill Hall. Again, like the Matrix, if you die in VR, you die in real life, which I think is just a plot device which books and films use to sort of up the jeopardy. But, you know, because if you die in this reality that we're in now, which we all will die, you don't die in the next one as well, you know, you just wake up. So this cop, McBain, then informs Douglas Hall that Jane doesn't actually exist, because Fuller never actually had a daughter. So Hall goes and tracks her down because he don't believe this cop, and he finds her working in a shop as a grocery store clerk, as they say in American. But this woman doesn't recognise Hall. So what's happened is this woman actually jacked into this bird in 1999 and used her as an avatar to try and shut down the VR simulation in 1999. I know you're confused, but if you've seen the film, you'll understand. So that's when Douglas Hall in 1999 starts to realise that not only has he created a simulation of 1937 LA, but that the 1999 version of LA in which he lives, he starts to realise that that is a simulation, which obviously fucks his head up. So he goes, following Fuller's instructions, goes for a long drive, and he sees the edge of the simulation.
Douglas,
Yeah.
Look, I can explain. I'm sorry.
I need to see you. Meet me in Fuller's office.
I know the truth.
Where are you?
You could call it.
Exactly the same as it is in his VR simulator. And then he grasps the revelation behind Fuller's message that 1999 Los Angeles is itself a simulation. So it's a simulation in a simulation. Then Jane Fuller explains the truth to Hall.
How many simulated worlds like this are there?
Thousands. But yours is the only one that ever created a simulation within the simulation. Something that we never could have expected.
So you had to kill Fuller.
No, I was sent in after his death. I was to assume the identity of his daughter, inherit the company, and shut it down. But he tricked us. He changed his will.
If you didn't kill Fuller, who did? I stabbed him.
But it wasn't you. It was your user. He downloaded into you, manipulated you.
A puppet.
A puppet doesn't have a soul.
I can't have a soul any more than Fuller.
But you do. Fuller did. That's what I never expected. We programmed this world so that no one in it could ever learn the truth, and you and Fuller did. Don't you see what that means?
Yeah. There's just one little flaw in your thesis. None of this is real. You pull the plug. I disappear. And nothing I ever say, nothing I ever do, will ever matter. Why don't you find...
His world is one of thousands of virtual worlds, but it's the only one in which one of the occupants have developed a virtual world of their own. Jane Fuller, the real Jane Fuller, lives in the real world outside of the simulation. And after Fuller's death, the German geezer, she enters the virtual version to assume the guise of Fuller's daughter, gain control of the company, and shut down the simulated 1937 reality. Never explain why they try and shut this 1937 virtual reality down. That's not ever explained, but I imagine that they're a bit jealous, or they don't know what the implications could be of having a simulation inside a simulation, so they work to stop it, shut it down. And then Jane Fuller starts saying that Douglas Hall is actually modelled after her real husband in the real world, who went mad because because he was driven to increasingly jealous and psychopathic behaviour from prolonged use of VR to live out his dark fantasies. That's Jane Fuller's real husband, and he actually goes into the simulation to try and kill her. But anyway, it's beside the point. Then there's a load of drama that's, you know, for the film, where the consciousness transfers from the 1937 simulation into the 1999 one, and they all try and kill each other. That's not really important for this bit. Obviously, it's an American film, so we've got a happy ending where Douglas Hall actually trades places with David and wakes up inside the simulation in 2024, connected to a VR system, and he takes over David's body in the real world. He disconnects from the system and finds Jane Fuller and her father, who is the real Hannon Fuller, who was the German geezer in his 1999 simulation. It was a nice little happy ending which didn't make much sense, but you know, you will forgive that for the idea. Now, my thoughts are thusly. It was an okay film, it's pretty good. Weirdly, The Matrix, even though it was filmed in the same year, the special effects in The Matrix are bloody mind-blowing, even to this day. And this didn't quite hold up. It looked quite dated as a film. And I think if they remade that film now, it would be brilliant. And the idea that we're in a simulation isn't just exclusive to our modern times, right? The idea that we're in a simulation has actually been spoken about for thousands of years. It's not some niche topic concept. I think this is the basis of every single religion. You might shoot me down for that, but listen, religion says that the world was designed by an intelligent creator. Now, back then, thousands of years ago, when these religions were being written down, they didn't have the vocabulary that we have today with computer science. They didn't have the word simulation or computer or anything like that. They just had God, angels, you know, those were the only words that they had and understood. And so obviously we've lost the translation over time. And I've got loads of videos about the simulation theory on this channel, which you can take a look at and take a deeper dive into than James Corden taking a jump into a swimming pool. And if you've watched this film, The 13th Floor, I guarantee it's probably giving you an existential crisis, hasn't it? But it's well worth it. What's interesting about this film is that it touches on the fact that people inside the simulation were shocked when they found out that they were actually simulated beings, arrogantly assuming that their world was the only fixed reality. But surely, if they then figured out that they could create a simulation, which Douglas Hall and Hannon Fuller did, then it must have crossed their mind, eventually, that they were in fact then already inside one. Because if you have the technology to create a simulation, then in the future, it will be possible then to simulate you. And so this film has backed up something which I already thought, which is not only are we in a simulation, we are probably in a simulation, in a simulation, in a simulation.